Rodney Agatupu Anoaʻi, famously known to the wrestling world as Yokozuna, was born on October 2, 1966, in San Francisco, California. His birth carried more than just the promise of a new life. It carried the weight of one of the most respected and legendary wrestling dynasties in history, the Anoaʻi family. This proud Samoan American family was deeply rooted in professional wrestling, producing multiple generations of performers who would become icons in the squared circle. From his earliest days, Rodney was surrounded by the sounds, stories, and traditions of the wrestling lifestyle, something that would profoundly shape his destiny. Rodney's father, Vera Anoaʻi, and his extended family were highly respected in their Samoan community. His uncles were none other than wrestling pioneers Afa and Sika Anoaʻi, known worldwide as the Wild Samoans. Their presence meant that wrestling was not just a distant career path for Rodney but a living, breathing reality in his own household. He grew up watching his uncles dominate arenas and television screens, absorbing the aura of their fame and discipline. Family gatherings were filled with stories about life on the road, the sacrifices of performing, and the pride that came with representing their heritage. Despite being born in California, Rodney's upbringing was a blend of American culture and strong Samoan traditions. His family instilled in him values such as respect, loyalty, and resilience, qualities that would later define his wrestling persona and career. As a child, Rodney was known for his cheerful demeanor, but also for his imposing size. By the time he was in school, he was already towering over many of his peers, a trait that both challenged him socially and gave him confidence in physical activities. Education played a role in his early life, but it was clear from a young age that Rodney's future lay outside the classroom. While he attended school in San Francisco, his interests leaned heavily toward sports rather than academics. He enjoyed football and other physical activities that allowed him to channel his strength and size. Yet, more than anything, it was professional wrestling that sparked his imagination. Watching his uncles and cousins perform ignited a fire in him to follow in their footsteps. During his teenage years, Rodney spent a great deal of time learning from his family. He would observe training sessions, study wrestling tapes, and slowly begin to practice basic moves under the guidance of seasoned wrestlers in his family. Wrestling was not just entertainment for Rodney, it was a legacy and a way of life. Every lesson, every word of encouragement from his elders fueled his determination to carry the family name forward. By the end of his youth, it was evident that Rodney Anoaʻi was destined to step into the world of professional wrestling. His background, rooted in tradition, family, and an unshakable Samoan pride, provided the foundation for the larger-than-life persona that would one day captivate millions. Before the world knew him as Yokozuna, Rodney was simply a boy from San Francisco with big dreams, a powerful family heritage, and the drive to make his mark in the world of wrestling. For Rodney Agatupu Anoaʻi, the boy who would later be known to the world as Yokozuna, wrestling was never just a dream. It was an inheritance. Growing up in the heart of the famous Anoaʻi family, Rodney was surrounded by wrestlers from the time he was a child. His uncles Afa and Sika Anoaʻi, the Wild Samoans, were already legends in the ring, while cousins like Samu and later Rikishi were paving their way into the sport. Watching them succeed gave Rodney both inspiration and a clear path to follow. Wrestling wasn't just a career choice, it was almost a family expectation. Rodney's introduction to the sport didn't happen in high school gyms or through amateur wrestling tournaments like it does for many athletes. Instead, his training ground was the private rings and gyms of his family. As a teenager, he would spend hours observing his uncles and cousins practice, studying their movements, and absorbing the psychology of the business. His uncles taught him not only how to wrestle, but also the importance of storytelling, character work, and respecting the craft. These lessons formed the bedrock of his future career. One of his earliest influences was his uncle Afa, who became his mentor. Under Afa's guidance, Rodney began to learn the fundamentals of professional wrestling, footwork, holds, bumps, and how to use his massive size effectively in the ring. Despite his imposing frame, Rodney was surprisingly agile, and his trainers encouraged him to develop a mix of power, base defense, and athletic movement. This unique combination would later set him apart from other heavyweights. By his late teens, Rodney knew that wrestling was his calling. With encouragement from his family, he began training seriously, often enduring grueling sessions to perfect his craft. His early days were filled with challenges, learning how to carry his weight safely, building stamina, and developing confidence in front of a crowd. Yet, his determination was unshakable. He wanted to prove that he could uphold the family name and carve his own place in the business. Rodney's first professional break came in the mid-1980s, when he began wrestling under different ring names in regional promotions. He performed in smaller circuits, often in tag team matches or as a singles competitor, honing his skills. Wrestling in these smaller promotions allowed him to gain valuable experience, connect with audiences, and develop his ring presence. Although the crowds were modest, every match brought him closer to becoming the performer he envisioned. His big turning point arrived when he caught the attention of World Wrestling Federation, WWF scouts, through the recommendation of his family. The Anoaʻi name carried weight in the industry, but Rodney's size, talent, and potential made him stand out on his own. WWF executives saw an opportunity to create a unique character that could dominate the heavyweight division. In 1992, Rodney officially joined WWF, and the creative team transformed him into Yokozuna, a towering sumo wrestler persona that played to his size and presence. This was the moment Rodney's years of preparation, training, and family guidance culminated. From the family rings in California to the global stage of WWF, Rodney Anoaʻi's path to wrestling was both traditional and extraordinary, a journey defined by heritage, hard work, and the drive to fulfill his destiny as one of wrestling's unforgettable giants. When Rodney Anoaʻi made his World Wrestling Federation, WWF debuted in late 1992 under the persona of Yokozuna, the wrestling world immediately took notice. Presented as a dominant sumo wrestler hailing from Japan, Yokozuna stood at over 6 feet 4 inches and weighed well over 500 pounds. His sheer size, combined with surprising agility for a man of his stature, made him an instant attraction. Managed by the ever-charismatic Mr. Fuji, Yokozuna was portrayed as an unstoppable force, a monster heel who crushed his opponents with the devastating Banzai drop. Yokozuna's first major push came at the 1993 Royal Rumble, where he eliminated Macho Man Randy Savage to secure victory. This triumph instantly positioned him as a main event player and set the stage for his first WrestleMania moment. At WrestleMania IX, Yokozuna challenged Bret Hart for the WWF Championship. In a shocking turn, he defeated Hart to capture his first WWF title. However, the celebration was cut short when Hulk Hogan stormed to the ring, challenged Yokozuna, and defeated him in seconds, an ending that drew both excitement and controversy among fans. Behind the scenes, there was mixed reaction to this booking. Many wrestlers felt Yokozuna deserved a longer reign to solidify his dominance. Fans, too, were divided. Some thrilled to see Hogan reclaim gold, others frustrated that Yokozuna's moment had been overshadowed, but this setback was short-lived. Just months later at King of the Ring 1993, Yokozuna defeated Hulk Hogan in a rematch, reclaiming the WWF Championship in a decisive fashion. This victory firmly established him as the top villain in the company. Over the next year, Yokozuna's reign was filled with memorable rivalries. His battles with Bret Hart continued to captivate fans, showcasing the contrast between Hart's technical brilliance and Yokozuna's raw power. One of his most iconic feuds came against Lex Luger, who slammed Yokozuna on the deck of the US Intrepid in July 1993 during a patriotic celebration. The sight of the massive Yokozuna being lifted by Luger electrified fans and made national headlines, cementing it as one of the most replayed moments in wrestling history. Yokozuna defended the championship at WrestleMania X in a unique double main event format, facing both Lex Luger and Bret Hart in separate matches on the same night. While he narrowly escaped Luger thanks to referee controversy, he ultimately lost the title to Bret Hart in the final match. Despite the loss, Yokozuna's performance that night solidified his reputation as a true main eventer who could carry the spotlight. Behind the curtain, Yokozuna was known as a gentle giant, well liked by his peers. Stories from wrestlers of that era often describe him as humble, respectful, and protective of younger talent. Despite his intimidating presence in the ring, he carried himself with warmth and humility backstage. Media outlets hailed Yokozuna as one of the most unique attractions in wrestling during the early 90s. Fans marveled at his size and agility, while his villainous character drew loud boos and intense reactions. He was a performer who made audiences believe in his dominance, and that authenticity made him unforgettable. By the mid-1990s, Yokozuna had firmly cemented his place in WWF history. With 2 WWF Championship reigns, unforgettable rivalries, and iconic moments etched into wrestling lore, his rise to fame was meteoric, proving that Rodney Anoaʻi had not only lived up to his family's legacy, but had carved out a legend entirely his own. Away from the bright lights of the wrestling ring, Rodney Anoaʻi, known to the world as Yokozuna, lived a life that reflected both the pride of his Samoan heritage and the struggles that came with being a larger-than-life superstar. Unlike many of his peers who thrived on constant media attention, Rodney was a private man who valued family, tradition, and loyalty above everything else. Born into the prestigious Anoaʻi wrestling dynasty, Rodney's life outside the ring was closely tied to his extended family. He was deeply connected to his cousins, many of whom were also wrestlers, such as Rikishi, Samoan, and later the Usos. Family gatherings were always vibrant, filled with laughter, food, and storytelling. His relatives recall that Rodney loved being around children, often entertaining his nieces and nephews with playful antics. Despite his intimidating persona in the ring, he was known within his circle as a gentle giant with a caring nature. In terms of relationships, Yokozuna kept much of his private life away from the public eye. He was married and had children, but unlike some wrestlers who made headlines with high-profile romances or controversies, Rodney preferred to shield his loved ones from the spotlight. He wanted his family to live a life of normalcy, far removed from the hectic schedule and politics of professional wrestling. Beyond wrestling, Rodney enjoyed a number of hobbies. One of his greatest passions was food and cooking, a love deeply rooted in Samoan culture. He took pride in large family feasts, enjoying the communal spirit of meals that brought everyone together. He also had a playful side, often pulling light-hearted pranks on fellow wrestlers during long road trips. Music was another interest, particularly traditional Samoan tunes and old-school R&B, which helped him relax when life on the road became overwhelming. However, life was not without struggles. Yokozuna's size, while a key to his wrestling success, was also his greatest challenge. His weight steadily increased throughout his career, sometimes exceeding 600 pounds. This brought health complications and limited mobility, which in turn affected his in-ring performance. The WWF and his family encouraged him to lose weight, but despite attempts, maintaining a healthier lifestyle was a constant battle. The physical toll of wrestling, long travel schedules, frequent injuries, and the demands of being a main event attraction only added to his hardships. While Yokozuna largely avoided scandals, his struggles with weight management often became a topic of conversation in wrestling circles and media reports. In 1996, he was even released from WWF after failing to meet weight-related health standards, a difficult blow that highlighted the personal toll of his condition. Behind the scenes, his peers expressed concern for his well-being, often urging him to take better care of himself. On a more positive note, Rodney was remembered for his generosity and charitable spirit. Within his community, he contributed to family, friends, and local causes quietly, never seeking recognition. Many fellow wrestlers recall his kindness. Whether it was helping a younger wrestler financially, offering advice, or simply sharing a meal, Rodney Anoaʻi's personal life was a mixture of joy, family love, cultural pride, and inner battles. While his wrestling character, Yokozuna, was larger than life and often feared, the man behind the character was compassionate, humble, and dedicated to those he cared about. His struggles were real, but so was his heart, leaving behind memories of a man who valued people far more than fame. By the mid-1990s, the incredible career of Yokozuna, Rodney Anoaʻi, began to slow down. His immense size, which had once made him a unique attraction, eventually became a serious obstacle. After holding the WWF Championship twice and headlining major events, his weight continued to rise, sometimes reaching over 600 pounds. This made it increasingly difficult for him to perform at the level expected of a main event superstar. Though he remained a fan favorite attraction, injuries and health concerns forced him to step back from the spotlight. In 1996, the World Wrestling Federation officially released Yokozuna after he was unable to pass a required physical exam due to his weight and related health risks. For Rodney, it was a heartbreaking moment. Wrestling had been his life since he was a teenager, and suddenly, the door to the company where he had made history was closed. Still, his love for wrestling never diminished. In the years following his WWF departure, Yokozuna remained active on the independent wrestling circuit. He appeared at smaller promotions across the United States, as well as international events in Europe and the Middle East. These appearances drew crowds eager to see the former world champion. Even if he was no longer in his prime physical condition, fans cheered him not just for what he could still do in the ring but for the memories he represented. For many, seeing Yokozuna, even years after his WWF peak, was like reliving the golden era of wrestling. Outside the ring, Rodney stayed connected to the wrestling world through his family. As part of the legendary Anoaʻi dynasty, he often offered advice and informal coaching to his younger cousins, who were beginning their careers. Wrestlers like Rikishi, the Usos and Roman Reigns would go on to become stars in their own right, and many credited Yokozuna with offering encouragement and guidance during their early journeys. Though he never officially took on a full-time training role like his uncles Afa and Sika, his presence was deeply influential within the family. Beyond wrestling, Yokozuna occasionally made public appearances at conventions and wrestling fan events. His presence always drew long lines of admirers who wanted to shake the hand of the man who once stood toe-to-toe with legends like Bret Hart, Hulk Hogan, and The Undertaker. Fans often remark that, despite his intimidating image on television, Rodney was approachable, humble, and warm in person. While acting or business ventures did not play a major role in his later years, Yokozuna remained a cultural icon. His persona had transcended wrestling, appearing in video games, merchandise, and highlight reels for years after his WWF career ended. The wrestling media often speculated about possible comebacks, especially as WWF entered the Attitude Era, but his health issues ultimately prevented any full-time return. Sadly, the later years of Rodney's life were overshadowed by the same health battles that ended his WWF career. Despite efforts to regain control of his weight, the demands of wrestling and the strain on his body made recovery difficult. Yet, even as his physical condition declined, his reputation as a beloved figure in wrestling grew. Fans cherished his past contributions, and peers admired his loyalty to family and respect for the industry. In retirement, Rodney Anoaʻi lived as a proud representative of the Anoaʻi legacy. Though his time in the spotlight was shorter than many, his influence extended far beyond his own matches. His later years may not have been filled with championships or new ventures, but they were defined by connection, mentorship, and the enduring love of fans who never forgot the dominance of Yokozuna. The wrestling world was stunned on October 23, 2000, when news broke that Rodney Agatupu Anoaʻi, better known as Yokozuna, had passed away at the young age of 34. He was on a wrestling tour in Liverpool, England, performing on the independent circuit when tragedy struck. The official cause of death was reported as pulmonary edema, a condition where fluid builds up in the lungs. Though his passing was sudden, it was not entirely unexpected to those close to him, as his health struggles related to his weight had been a concern for many years. The news sent shockwaves through the wrestling community. Fellow wrestlers who had shared locker rooms and rings with Yokozuna spoke about him not as the monstrous villain he portrayed on television, but as the kind-hearted, gentle man behind the character. Bret Hart described him as a professional who made everyone look good in the ring, while others like Rikishi and the Wild Samoans, his close family members, expressed grief not only for the loss of a relative, but for the loss of a cornerstone of their wrestling legacy. Fans worldwide mourned the man who had dominated the WWF main events during the early 1990s, remembering him for his iconic matches against Hulk Hogan, Lex Luger, Bret Hart, and The Undertaker. Media coverage at the time highlighted both his in-ring achievements and his personal struggles. Many outlets emphasized how, despite his massive size, Yokozuna moved with incredible agility and athleticism that defied expectations. Others pointed to his untimely death as a reminder of the physical and health toll professional wrestling could take on its performers. Regardless of the angle, one truth was clear: Yokozuna had left a permanent mark on the sport. In the years after his death, his legacy only grew. He became remembered not just as a two-time WWF champion and Royal Rumble winner, but as one of the most unique and influential big men in wrestling history. His dominance in the ring inspired later generations of super heavyweight wrestlers, proving that larger athletes could still be agile, charismatic, and main event stars. The Anoaʻi family continued to honor his memory. His cousins, including Rikishi, the Usos, and Roman Reigns, carried the torch of the family name into WWE's modern era. Each has often spoken about Yokozuna's influence on their careers, recalling his encouragement and presence at family gatherings as a source of inspiration. To them, Yokozuna wasn't just a wrestling legend. He was a mentor, role model, and loving family man. In 2012, WWE officially recognized his contributions by inducting Yokozuna into the WWE Hall of Fame. The ceremony was emotional, with family members accepting the honor on his behalf. Fans around the world celebrated the induction as a fitting tribute to a man who had helped define an era. Today, Yokozuna is remembered as one of wrestling's most unforgettable giants. His image lives on through WWE Network replays, documentaries, action figures, and video games. Younger fans continue to discover his matches, while older fans recall the awe they felt when he stepped into the ring. Though his life was cut tragically short, the legend of Yokozuna remains larger than life, an enduring symbol of power, heritage, and the unique magic of professional wrestling.